She thought she knew her quiet neighbor, until a shocking secret revealed he was a billionaire. Could she fall in love with the man behind the mask? Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. If you're tuned in and ready to dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So, let's get started. Clara had always loved her quiet apartment building. It wasn't flashy, and it wasn't crowded, but it had character. And for the last few months, her peaceful routine had been interrupted by a new neighbor who kept to himself. He was polite but distant, often seen carrying groceries or walking a dog she didn't recognize. Nothing remarkable, at least on the surface. Clara barely noticed him beyond a polite smile in the hallway. But something about the way he moved, the subtle confidence, made her curious. Every time their paths crossed, her pulse quickened for reasons she didn't understand. Little did she know, the man next door wasn't just ordinary. He wasn't even just wealthy. He was Ethan, a billionaire who had chosen to live anonymously, blending in as a simple neighbor to escape the relentless scrutiny of the world. And now, the secret he had guarded so carefully was on the verge of spilling, right into Clara's life. The first time she noticed something unusual was a rainy Tuesday evening. She had forgotten her umbrella and was about to dash down the stairs when he appeared at her door, holding an extra umbrella with a shy, polite smile. "Here, you'll get soaked," he said. Clara hesitated, but his gentle demeanor made her heart flutter. "Thank you. That's very kind of you." He shrugged lightly. "It's nothing. I just don't like seeing someone struggle in the rain." She smiled at the simplicity of his words, the ordinary kindness. For a moment, she wondered what his story was, but she never imagined the truth. The weeks went by, and their brief encounters became small rituals, sharing a cup of coffee in the hallway, laughing over misplaced packages, exchanging smiles across the courtyard. Clara found herself thinking about him more than she cared to admit. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. She returned home from work, tired and carrying bags of groceries, only to hear a commotion upstairs. Curious, she peeked into the corridor and froze. There he was, her neighbor, surrounded by cameras, a team of assistants, and a crowd of reporters shouting his name. "Ethan Middleson?" someone called out. "Is it true you're the CEO of Middleson Enterprises?" Clara's eyes widened. The man she had thought was a quiet, ordinary neighbor, the man who had shared smiles, coffee, and umbrellas, was the billionaire she had only ever seen in magazines. Her heart raced. She didn't know whether to feel betrayed, amazed, or captivated. He saw her standing there and froze, recognition lighting up his face. For the first time, the confident, controlled billionaire hesitated. Clara swallowed hard, whispering to herself, all this time, he was living next door, and just like that, the quiet world she had known was gone. Her neighbor wasn't ordinary at all, and the man she had been slowly drawn to carried a secret far bigger than she had ever imagined. Ethan's eyes met hers across the chaos of cameras and reporters. He opened his mouth as if to explain, but the press pushed forward, and Clara had to wonder, would she ever understand the man she had been quietly falling for? If someone you thought was ordinary turned out to be a billionaire, how would you react? Comment below your answer. The next day, Clara couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. The memory of him standing amid cameras, assistants, and flashing lights played over and over in her mind. The man she had casually shared smiles with, helped carry groceries, and exchanged small jokes with was a billionaire. She had to see him, not as the CEO the world adored, but as the neighbor who had quietly earned her attention. By the time she reached the lobby of her building, she saw him descending the stairs. His suit was immaculate, his posture commanding, yet there was a softness in his expression that only appeared when he looked at her. "Clara," he greeted, his voice low, carrying a warmth she had almost forgotten amidst the spectacle of yesterday. "Ethan," she replied cautiously. I didn't know." Her words were hesitant, tinged with curiosity, confusion, and the slightest spark of awe. He exhaled, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his otherwise composed face. I didn't want you to know like that. I wanted you to see me. Not the headlines, not the fortune, not the fame. Clara studied him carefully, searching for the man she had gotten to know. The quiet, kind neighbor who had never made her feel like she had to impress him. He still stood there, but now the world around him had changed everything. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She asked softly. Because I didn't want my life to change the way I felt about you, he admitted. I wanted you to see me for who I am, not for what I have. Her chest tightened. There it was, the sincerity she had once trusted, now clashing with the reality of his secret. She wanted to believe him, but the enormity of his wealth, his status, and the life he led beyond their building made her feel like she had been walking in two separate worlds. I don't even know how to process this, she confessed. Ethan stepped closer, careful not to overwhelm her. You don't have to process it all at once. I'm still the man who shared a cup of coffee with you in the hallway. I'm still the one who brought you an umbrella in the rain. That hasn't changed. For a moment, Clara closed her eyes, letting herself remember those simple, perfect moments. The laugh he had shared when Flower accidentally dusted her apron. The shy smile when he complimented her small acts of kindness. Those memories grounded her, reminding her that the connection they had formed was real. She opened her eyes, a mix of fear and longing swirling inside her. But it's huge, Ethan. Your world, it's so far from mine. How could you live next door like nothing was happening? He chuckled softly, a sound that made her heart flutter. Because I wanted to know you without my world in the way. I wanted to be just Ethan, your neighbor, someone you could trust without the burden of expectations. And honestly, I didn't expect to fall for you the way I did. Her breath caught. You fell for me? Yes, he admitted, his gaze unwavering. I fell for you before anyone knew who I was. Before the wealth, before the status, before anyone could influence me. I fell for the way you smiled, the way you cared for others, the way you made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. Clara's mind spun. All the casual encounters, the small gestures, the shared laughter. They weren't meaningless. They had been real. And now, she realized, the man she had quietly admired, the neighbor she had ignored more than once, had been quietly falling for her too. I don't know what to say, she whispered, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Then don't say anything yet, Ethan said gently. Just let me show you. Let me prove that my world doesn't have to overshadow ours. Let me prove that this can work. Clara hesitated, torn between the awe of who he was and the vulnerability of her own heart. She wanted to reach out, to take his hand, to trust him fully. But fear whispered that the gap between their lives might be too large. Ethan noticed her hesitation and didn't press. Instead, he simply offered a hand, steady and patient. One step at a time. That's all I ask. For the first time in hours, Clara felt a sliver of hope. One step at a time. She could do that. She could trust this man, the billionaire who had chosen to be just her neighbor long enough to fall for her. She placed her hand in his, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip, the sincerity of his intentions. Okay, she whispered, one step at a time. And in that moment, as the sun dipped low behind the city skyline, something shifted between them. A spark of understanding, of possibility, of connection that neither money nor status could define. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't certain. But it was real. That night, as Clara returned to her apartment, she found a small envelope slipped under her door. It was addressed simply, "For you, from your neighbor." Inside was a handwritten note. "Meet me on the rooftop at midnight. I want to show you who I really am." If someone you thought was ordinary revealed a secret that changed everything, would you take the risk to know the truth? Comment Bilo? Clara spent the evening staring at the note Ethan had left. The handwriting was familiar. His careful, precise script, and yet every curve and loop seemed to hold the weight of the secret he had carried. She felt a swirl of emotions. Curiosity, fear, excitement, and a growing realization that her world was about to collide with his in ways she hadn't prepared for. Despite her intrigue, hesitation gnawed at her. What if she was making a mistake? What if she allowed herself to believe in the connection they had formed casually, only to be overwhelmed by the reality of his billionaire life? Her simple, quiet life suddenly felt fragile in comparison to the world Ethan inhabited. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his penthouse, watching the city lights glimmer like a million distant stars. He had expected Clara's hesitation. He knew the truth about his life was daunting. Even with all the charm, the vulnerability, and the moments they had shared, he worried whether she could bridge the gap between them. He picked up his phone, scrolling through messages from assistants, staff, and investors, and for the first time in months he ignored them all. His focus was entirely on Clara. "I have to be patient," he murmured. "She needs to see the real me, not just the billionaire everyone knows." That night, Clara paced her apartment, her mind racing. She replayed every encounter she had with him. The small laughs, the shared coffee, the gentle gestures. But now, knowing who he truly was, everything felt heavier. It wasn't just about trust anymore. It was about whether she could reconcile the man she had gotten to know with the world he belonged to. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Midnight. Rooftop. Just you and me. No distractions." She read it over and over. Her instincts told her to ignore it. She wanted to retreat, to protect her heart from the whirlwind of emotions and the daunting gap between their lives. And yet, something deep inside told her she couldn't resist. She had to see him, even if only to understand the man behind the billionaire face. The hours crawled. Clara distracted herself with small tasks around her apartment, cleaning, organizing, anything to slow the racing of her thoughts. Still, the question lingered. Can I trust him? Can I let myself fall? At the same time, Ethan prepared for the rooftop meeting with care. He laid out a small picnic blanket, some of her favorite pastries from the bakery, and a simple bouquet of daisies he had picked just that morning. Each item was a symbol, not of wealth, but of the ordinary, genuine moments he wanted to share with her. When the clock finally struck midnight, Clara stood at the rooftop entrance, trembling slightly. Ethan stepped forward, his expression a mixture of hope and vulnerability. "Clara," he whispered, "you don't have to make a decision tonight. I just wanted to show you me. Just me." She hesitated, her instincts screaming both yes and no. "Ethan, your world is so big, so overwhelming. I don't know if I'm enough." He shook his head gently. "It's never been about wealth or status. It's been about the person I am when I'm with you. That's the part one want you to see. Nothing else matters." Clara wanted to believe him. She wanted to step forward, to close the gap between them, to trust the man who had quietly fallen for her while living next door. But fear tightened around her chest like a vice. I need time," she admitted finally. "I can't pretend I'm not scared. I can't pretend this is easy." Ethan's expression softened. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. I'll be here. Just as your neighbor, just as Ethan." Even as she turned to leave, Clara couldn't shake the pull she felt toward him. The spark of connection, the vulnerability in his eyes, the quiet moments that had felt so ordinary. They had transformed her understanding of love. And though she resisted, she knew this wasn't over. As Clara walked back into her apartment, her heart heavy with uncertainty, Ethan watched from the rooftop, his gaze following her. He whispered to the night sky, "I won't give up. I can't. Not on her." The next morning, a small envelope appeared at Clara's door. No writing this time, just her name. Inside was a simple card. "I understand your hesitation, but I'll prove to you that love doesn't need to be complicated. Meet me tonight." Have you ever resisted someone because the truth felt too overwhelming? Comment below. Would you take the risk for love? That evening, Clara returned home from work to find a notice slipped under her door. Her apartment's water had been shut off due to maintenance. It would be hours before the plumbing was fixed. She sighed, juggling bags of groceries and her keys, and realized she'd have to wait somewhere. Just as she contemplated what to do, A familiar voice called from the hallway. "You could wait in my apartment," Ethan said, holding the door open. "I know it's inconvenient. You're welcome to use my shower, my kitchen, whatever you need." Clara hesitated. The idea of entering his world so directly was intimidating. But the thought of sitting in a cold, silent apartment with no running water was worse. "All right," she finally said, her voice careful but trusting. Once inside, she immediately noticed how different his home felt from his public persona. There were no gilded displays, no extravagant decorations. It was warm, inviting, and filled with personal touches that reflected him. Books stacked carefully on a shelf, framed photos of travel adventures, and a small potted plant by the window. As she washed her hands in his kitchen sink, Ethan handed her a towel with a shy smile. "I hope this isn't too forward," he said softly. "I just want you to be comfortable." Clara looked up and smiled, feeling the warmth of his gaze. It wasn't the billionaire staring back at her. It was Ethan, the man who had lived next door, laughed with her, and shared ordinary moments that felt extraordinary. "You've made it very comfortable," she admitted. "I wasn't expecting this." He shrugged, casual and unassuming. "It's my home, not a showroom. I want you to see me as I am, without the world in between us." They sat together at the small kitchen table, sipping tea and nibbling on pastries she had brought from the bakery. The initial awkwardness began to fade as laughter returned, lighter and easier than it had felt in days. At one point, Clara glanced at the city skyline through the window. "It's strange," she admitted. "I've walked past your building countless times, yet I never imagined your life could feel so simple, yet so real." Ethan smiled. "That's what I wanted. I wanted you to see the world I live in. Not the headlines, not the cameras, not the fame. Just me. Just us." For hours they talked about everything and nothing. Books they loved, places they wanted to visit, small childhood memories that shaped them. The forced proximity created an intimacy that neither could ignore. Every glance, every shared smile, every gentle laugh pulled them closer together. Clara realized that despite the wealth, despite the secret, Ethan's presence made her feel safe and understood. The distance between their worlds felt less daunting when they were together like this, sharing ordinary moments that had become extraordinary simply because of their connection. At one point, Ethan reached across the table and gently took her hand. "I know this is a lot to process," he said, his voice steady but sincere. "But I want you to know something important. My life isn't the part one want you to love. It's me. Every small, imperfect, ordinary piece of me." Clara's heart swelled at his words. "And I want to know all of you," she whispered. They were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. A maintenance worker peeked in to announce the water was restored. Clara looked at Ethan and smiled, the simple act of sharing a few hours together leaving her unexpectedly emotional. As she prepared to leave, Ethan walked her to the door. "Tonight was important," he said quietly. "I hope it showed you what I've been trying to explain all along." Clara nodded, feeling the truth of his words in her chest. "It did," she replied, squeezing his hand. "More than you know." They lingered for a moment, their eyes locked. Neither wanted to let go, yet both understood that the world outside their building still existed. Finally, Clara stepped back, her heart full but her mind conflicted. She knew that the real challenge lay ahead, navigating a relationship where their worlds were so different. But tonight, the forced proximity had reminded her of something essential. Connection wasn't about wealth or status. It was about presence, vulnerability, and trust. Ethan watched her go, feeling a surge of hope. The moments they had shared, though brief, had built a bridge between them. And he silently promised himself that he would cross that bridge with her, no matter what challenges awaited. Clara's heart swelled at his words. "And I want to know all of you," she whispered. They were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. A maintenance worker peeked in to announce the water was restored. Clara looked at Ethan and smiled, the simple act of sharing a few hours together leaving her unexpectedly emotional. As she prepared to leave, Ethan walked her to the door. "Tonight was important," he said quietly. I hope it showed you what I've been trying to explain all along. Clara nodded, feeling the truth of his words in her chest. It did, she replied, squeezing his hand. More than you know. They lingered for a moment, their eyes locked. Neither wanted to let go, yet both understood that the world outside their building still existed. Finally, Clara stepped back, her heart full but her mind conflicted. She knew that the real challenge lay ahead, navigating a relationship where their worlds were so different. But tonight, the forced proximity had reminded her of something essential. Connection wasn't about wealth or status. It was about presence, vulnerability, and trust. Ethan watched her go, feeling a surge of hope. The moments they had shared, though brief, had built a bridge between them. And he silently promised himself that he would cross that bridge with her, no matter what challenges awaited. As Clara reached her apartment, she turned the key in the lock, only to find a small package waiting outside. It was unmarked, except for a single note. For when you need a reminder of what matters most me. She opened it to find a tiny photo of the two of them laughing on the rooftop weeks ago, and her heart skipped a beat. If someone showed you a piece of their world, would you take the leap to get to know the real person? Comment Bilo? The next evening, Clara found herself standing at the rooftop entrance again, the city skyline glowing like a sea of lights. Ethan was already there, the same warmth in his eyes that had drawn her in from the beginning. He gestured toward the picnic blanket, now set up with soft cushions and her favorite pastries. I thought, maybe we could talk, Ethan said, his tone gentle. About us. About everything. Clara nodded and took a seat beside him, feeling the cool breeze mix with the warmth of the moment. I want to understand you, she admitted. Not the headlines, not the wealth, just you. Ethan exhaled, relieved. Then I'll tell you everything I can, without expecting anything in return. He began with his childhood, a boy raised in the shadow of expectations. Ethan had grown up in a world where everything was measured in numbers, profits, and public appearances. Love had always been conditional, tied to performance and image. The world had taught him to hide his vulnerabilities and project an image of perfection, and he had obeyed because it was easier than being misunderstood. But I never wanted my life to be defined by money alone, he said quietly, glancing at Clara. I wanted someone to see me, the real me, before the world saw the billionaire. That's why I moved here, into this building, pretending to be someone simple, someone ordinary. And then, I met you. Clara listened, her chest tightening. The man she had laughed with in hallways, shared coffee with, and admired quietly had carried burdens she could hardly imagine. And yet, even beneath the weight of his past, there had been room for kindness, for moments of simplicity, and for her. I had no idea, she whispered. I didn't know the kind of life you came from, or the sacrifices you made. Ethan shook his head gently. You shouldn't have. None of that mattered to you. You liked me because I was present. You didn't care about my last name or my bank account. And that meant more to me than anything else ever could. Clara swallowed hard, feeling tears prick at her eyes. She realized why she had been so drawn to him, even when she had thought he was just a quiet neighbor. His presence wasn't grand or ostentatious. It was steady, kind, and genuine. Then she shared her own story, something she had never revealed to anyone before. She told him about her childhood in a small town, the early mornings working at her father's bakery, and the constant pressure to prove herself in a world that often overlooked quiet, hardworking girls. She admitted the fear that her ordinary life would never measure up to someone like him. Ethan listened, holding her hand as she spoke. Clara, none of that matters, he said softly. Your courage, your kindness, your heart, that's what drew me to you. Not the money, not the status. You've never known how extraordinary you are, but I've always known. Her heart fluttered at his words. In that moment, it didn't matter that he was a billionaire. It didn't matter that their worlds were so different. What mattered was that they were both real, both vulnerable, and both willing to take the risk to know each other. They sat in silence for a while, the city lights stretching endlessly below them. For the first time, Clara felt that Ethan wasn't just a man with secrets. He was a man willing to trust her with them, and that trust stirred something deep inside her. A desire to let go of fear and embrace the possibility of love. Ethan broke the quiet, his voice tender but firm. "I don't want to lose this, Clara. I don't want to lose you." Clara's eyes met his, her own fear mingling with hope. I don't want to lose this either. But I need to know that what we have is real. That you're not hiding behind your world anymore." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm not hiding. Not anymore. I'm Ethan. Just me. And I want you to see me completely, and maybe, if you'll let me, I'll see all of you too." For the first time, Clara felt the walls she had built around her heart soften. The billionaire's secret no longer felt like a barrier. It was an invitation. An invitation to trust, to connect, and to take a chance on something extraordinary. Just as Clara reached for his hand, her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend flashed on the screen. "Clara? Have you seen the news? Ethan Middleson is at it again. Big announcement. And it's about you. If someone you cared about had a secret that could change everything, would you trust them or run? Comment below what you would do." Clara couldn't stop thinking about the news alert on her phone. Her heart raced, yet she felt a strange calm. Despite the revelation about Ethan's status, the trust and connection they had built, the rooftop conversations, the quiet laughs, the shared pastries, grounded her. She realized she didn't want to turn away from him. Not now. Later that evening, Ethan knocked softly on her door, holding a small box wrapped in simple brown paper. "I thought you might need a reason to smile tonight," he said, offering it to her. Clara hesitated, then took the box. Inside, she found a tiny ceramic figurine. A pair of birds perched together on a branch. "I saw it and thought of us," he explained, his voice gentle, eyes searching hers. "It's beautiful," Clara whispered, touched. "It reminds me of ordinary things that matter." Ethan smiled. "Exactly. Ordinary things. Moments that are ours, not the world's." For the first time in weeks, Clara felt her guard begin to fade. She realized that love didn't always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes, it came quietly, persistently, in gestures that showed someone was paying attention to the little things that mattered to you. They spent the evening together, cooking dinner in her small kitchen, laughing at minor mishaps, and stealing moments of tenderness between chopping vegetables and stirring sauce. Each laugh, each glance, each touch strengthened their bond, bridging the gap between billionaire and neighbor, fame and simplicity. At one point, Ethan poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Clara. "I've been thinking," he began, "about what matters most. It's not the headlines, the money, or even the lifestyle. It's moments like this. With you." Clara's heart fluttered. "I feel the same," she admitted softly. "Even after everything, I feel like this is real. Like us." Ethan reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "It is real, and I want it to grow. Not fast, not rushed, but steady. Every moment, every step." Clara's eyes glistened with emotion. She had long believed love could be simple, yet real. And now, with Ethan, it felt possible. The billionaire world that had once intimidated her no longer mattered. What mattered was him and the way he saw her, not as someone ordinary, but as someone extraordinary. Later, as they moved to the living room, they curled up on the sofa, hands intertwined. Words became unnecessary as they shared a quiet intimacy, the kind born from trust, laughter, and the courage to reveal themselves fully to each other. "I never imagined this," Clara whispered, "that I could feel so connected to someone like you." Ethan kissed her forehead gently. "And I never imagined I'd meet someone who sees me as I am, not as the world expects me to be. You've changed everything, Clara." Time slipped away unnoticed as they talked about dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. Every story exchanged, every secret shared, deepened their bond. Each small gesture became a testament to love that didn't depend on wealth, status, or public recognition. It depended on presence, vulnerability, and mutual respect. By the end of the evening, Clara realized something important. Love wasn't about hiding from the world. It was about finding someone who made the world feel safe, even when everything else was uncertain. And she had found that in Ethan. As they said goodnight, Clara's phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from a stranger. You don't know the half of it. Ethan's empire is bigger than you can imagine, and he's about to announce something that could change both your lives. Be careful. If someone you trusted had secrets bigger than you ever imagined, would you stay or run? Comment below what you would do. The next morning, Clara awoke to a flurry of notifications on her phone. Social media had exploded overnight with news about Ethan's empire. Articles, blogs, and videos painted him as a titan of industry, a billionaire whose every move was scrutinized. Clara's heart sank. She felt exposed, as though the quiet world she had built for herself had been shattered by the mere truth of his existence. She tried to focus on ordinary tasks, coffee, laundry, breakfast, but every notification made her hands tremble. She loved Ethan, yes, but the weight of his life felt suddenly suffocating. Could she truly be a part of it? Could she navigate a world so different from hers, one that could swallow her identity and independence whole? Meanwhile, Ethan paced his penthouse, unaware that the media storm had hit Clara first. He had been preparing to make a public statement about his latest venture, unaware that Clara was struggling with the magnitude of his life. His phone buzzed with urgent messages from assistants and lawyers. He hesitated, feeling a knot in his chest. He wanted to call her immediately but feared that the intrusion of his world would only push her further away. Clara finally made her decision. She texted him, "I need space. This is too much." Ethan's heart sank as he read the words. The fear he had quietly carried, the fear of losing her to the enormity of his life, was now real. He wanted to reach out to explain, but he respected her boundaries, even as it tore him apart. That afternoon, Clara wandered through the city, trying to think, to breathe, to reconcile her feelings. Everywhere she went, she saw reminders of him. The cafe where they had first talked, the little corner store where they had shared snacks, the rooftop where they had laughed under the stars. Each memory made her chest ache, but also reminded her why she loved him. Ethan, meanwhile, called his assistant and canceled all meetings. He couldn't focus on work, not when he risked losing Clara. He decided that if she wanted space, he would give it, but he also made a promise to himself. He wouldn't let this break them. That evening, they were scheduled to attend a charity gala, something Ethan had initially insisted on attending with Clara by his side. Clara had every intention of declining, of keeping her distance. But as she prepared to leave, a familiar knock echoed through her apartment. It was Ethan holding a small bouquet of daisies, her favorite. His expression was serious but tender. "Clara, please. I know this is overwhelming. I know it's big, but I can't stand the thought of us being torn apart by the world outside. I just want a chance to show you that what we have is stronger than anything else." Clara looked at him, tears brimming. "Ethan, your life. It's too much. I'm not sure I can." He stepped closer, gently cupping her face. "You can, because I'll be with you every step. We'll face it together, not as a billionaire and a neighbor, but as two people who care deeply about each other. That's all that matters." For a moment, Clara faltered. The media, the empire, the overwhelming wealth, it all pressed in on her. But then she looked into Ethan's eyes, and she saw something she hadn't seen before: unwavering devotion. It wasn't about the empire. It wasn't about the fame. It was about them. She swallowed hard, taking a shaky breath. I don't know if I'm ready for it all." He smiled softly, brushing away a tear that had escaped her cheek. "You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing to try with me." And in that moment, Clara realized that love wasn't about being prepared for every challenge. It was about choosing someone, even when the world felt too big, even when the future was uncertain. As they stood together on the balcony, ready to face the chaos outside, a sudden notification appeared on Ethan's phone. A message from a business partner that could change everything in his empire and put their budding relationship in the spotlight. Have you ever had to face the pressure of someone else's world while protecting your love? Comment below how you would handle it. Clara sat on the rooftop, staring at the city lights that stretched endlessly beneath her. The cool night air brushed her face, but it couldn't soothe the storm inside her heart. The world she had built for herself, simple, quiet, predictable, was colliding with Ethan's life, vast, public, and complicated. She thought about the daisies he had brought her, the laughter they had shared, the moments that felt like they belonged only to them. And yet, every article, every news flash, reminded her that his world was unforgiving. Could she survive in it? Could she remain herself without being swallowed by the grandeur, the fame, the expectations? Ethan appeared beside her, his silhouette framed by the city skyline. He didn't speak at first. He simply sat, giving her the space to think, to feel, to wrestle with her doubts. Finally, she exhaled, voice trembling. "Ethan, I don't know if I can do this. Your life, it's too big, too public. I'm just me." Ethan took her hand gently. "Clara, you are everything. Not just you. You're the person who makes me feel seen, who makes me want to be better, who reminds me what it's like to love without pretense." She shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "But what if I can't keep up? What if the world swallows me whole?" He smiled softly, brushing her hair from her face. "Then we face it together, step by step. You don't have to do it alone." Clara's mind raced. She remembered all the times she had ignored him, all the moments she had underestimated the depth of his feelings. And now, here he was, vulnerable, patient, offering her the chance to be part of his life, not his empire. Her heart knew the answer before her mind could fully process it. She had spent so long fearing the unknown, fearing loss, fearing the enormity of his life. But love wasn't about avoiding fear, it was about choosing someone despite it. I choose you," she whispered finally, her voice breaking but filled with certainty. "I don't care about the headlines, the wealth, I care about us." Ethan's eyes lit up, a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. "Clara, you have no idea how long I've waited to hear that." They stayed like that for a moment, hearts beating in unison, the city's chaos fading into insignificance. For once, it didn't matter who watched, who judged, or how complicated their lives had become. All that mattered was the connection between them. Later, as they walked back to her apartment, hand in hand, Clara felt a new strength within her. She realized that love wasn't about hiding from challenges or pretending the world didn't exist. It was about standing together, facing whatever came, and never letting go of each other. Ethan paused at her door, his hand still holding hers. "No more secrets," he promised. "Everything I am, everything I have, it's yours to know. But more importantly, it's yours to share, if you want it." Clara nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "And I do. I want it all. With you." He kissed her softly, a kiss that sealed their choice, a promise that no matter how big the world became, they would face it together. And in that moment, Clara knew that stepping into Ethan's world wasn't a risk. It was an opportunity to build something real, something lasting, something theirs. As they entered her apartment, Ethan's phone buzzed with another notification. A private message from someone who had been watching their every move, hinting at a secret that could test their trust. Clara's hand tightened around his. Together they would face it. But the question remained, could love withstand the unknown? If you had to choose between fear of the unknown and trusting love, what would you do? Comment below and share your thoughts. The next morning, Clara woke to sunlight streaming through her window. The city hummed below, alive and indifferent. But inside her apartment, a sense of calm prevailed. Last night's decision had changed everything. She had chosen Ethan, not his empire, not his wealth, just him. And for the first time, she felt a sense of courage that wasn't tied to fear. Ethan was already there when she stepped into the kitchen. He had brewed coffee, leaving 2 steaming mugs on the counter, and a small note beside them, "For us, step by step, together." Clara smiled, touched by the simplicity of the gesture. The grandeur of his world had nothing on these quiet, intimate moments. They spent the morning talking, laughing, and planning. Not about wealth or status, but about shared dreams, travel destinations, quiet weekends, and even silly things like trying new pastries at local bakeries. The world outside their walls might be vast and complicated, but here, with each other, it felt manageable. Later, Ethan led her to the rooftop. The city skyline sparkled, the streets below alive with movement. He took her hand, eyes bright with anticipation. "Clara, I know the world can feel overwhelming. I know my life is complicated. But I promise you this. Nothing is bigger than what we have together. You and me, we matter more than everything else." Clara felt tears prickle her eyes. "I believe you," she whispered, "and I believe in us. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." As they stood there, the wind brushing their faces, a notification appeared on Ethan's phone. He glanced at it, prepared for the worst. But it wasn't a threat. It was a congratulations from his team on his decision to publicly acknowledge their relationship in a heartfelt announcement. The world would know, yes, but more importantly, it was a statement that he chose love over secrecy. Clara laughed softly, relief washing over her. "So, the world knows we're together?" Ethan smiled and pulled her close. "Yes, and now we live openly, fully, and without fear. We don't hide. We don't run. We face everything together." The day unfolded with a gentle rhythm. They walked through the streets hand in hand, unnoticed by the media, unnoticed by the crowds. They were simply Clara and Ethan, two hearts that had chosen to trust each other despite the unknown, despite the complications. That evening, as the city lights glittered, Ethan and Clara returned to the rooftop one last time. They stood in silence, watching the sunset paint the skyline with shades of gold and pink. "You know," Clara said softly, leaning her head on his shoulder, "I thought I was ordinary, but with you, I feel extraordinary." Ethan kissed the top of her head, a soft, tender gesture that spoke volumes. "And you are extraordinary to me, every single day." For the first time since their chance meeting, both felt a sense of completion. The fears, the secrets, the unknown. They hadn't disappeared entirely, but they no longer held power over them. Love had, trust had, and the quiet, steadfast connection they had nurtured had won. As night fell, they stood together on the rooftop, hands intertwined, hearts aligned. The world outside could be big, complicated, and overwhelming, but they were bigger together. And while the world may never fully understand how a billionaire and a simple neighbor could find love, Clara and Ethan knew the truth. Love doesn't need permission, recognition, or approval. It simply needs hearts willing to choose each other every day. If you've ever fallen for someone against all odds, or had to trust love in the face of uncertainty, share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more billionaire love stories like this. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.